Ready to open the hood? UseTool for the tutorials.
And for car parts, the right idea is the Mr. Auto app.
You will find the bulk shock absorbers used in the video exclusively on the Mr. Auto website and through the link in the description. Turn your engine off. Pull up the handbrake. Pull on the bonnet release lever and open the bonnet. To disassemble the front shock absorbers, it is first important to remove the windscreen frame and the windscreen wiper. Before removing the wiper arm, use a piece of adhesive tape to keep a precise mark on its end of stroke position so that you can position it correctly when reassembling. Remove the nut cover from the wiper blade arm and, using a socket wrench and a 12mm socket, loosen the nut. Remove the wiper arm by making slight movements up and down. If it doesn't come easily, we recommend using a car wiper arm puller to make the task a little easier. Use the jack to lift the stub axle on the other side to make it easier to install the sway bar link. Remove the side covers. To remove the frame, unclip the locking tabs and lift the windscreen frame. You can also use a flathead screwdriver for leverage. Remove the hose for the windscreen washing liquid. Then remove the frame. You can now see the windshield engine and its rods. Using a pry bar, unclip the clips holding the power harness. Using a ratchet and a 10mm socket, unscrew the two screws holding the wiper drive unit in place. Remove the last clip. Then remove the drive unit. Disconnect the connector by pressing the tab and pulling on it. You now have to remove the metallic frame. Then, using a socket wrench, an extender, and a 10mm socket, remove the 6 holding screws on the metallic frame. Then remove the 2 plastic rivets using a pry bar. Remove the metal frame. Brush the nut holding the suspension strut support bearing, then spray it with penetrating oil. Using a 6mm Allen key and a 17mm offset spanner, unscrew the nut holding the upper suspension strut support bearing by a few threads. You can also use the specific tool used in the video, which will make your task much easier. Loosen the stud bolts on the front wheels. You must remove the wheels in order to change the front shock absorbers on your car. This will give you full access to the suspension system. Lift the front of the vehicle. Place the vehicle on the axle stands. We strongly suggest watching our tutorial, raising your Peugeot 108 safely, before carrying out this step. Don't forget to slide the wheels under the vehicle. In order to change this type of shock absorber, you need to remove the hub nut. To unscrew the hub lug nut, you have to prevent the disc from rotating. Roughly screw 2 while stud bolts back on. Ask someone to press the brake pedal. With an iron bar and a 30mm socket, unscrew the hub nut without removing it. Brush the suspension ball joint retaining nut and spray it with penetrating oil. Using a flathead screwdriver, release the holding key on the castellated nut. Then unscrew the nut using a 19mm spanner. Using a ball joint puller, release the suspension ball joint from the stub axle. On this vehicle, The sway bar link is directly attached to the control arm. You therefore have to remove it. Using a 12mm spanner, a socket wrench, and a 12mm socket, unscrew the sway bar link. Remove the lower silent block. Using a 12mm spanner, unscrew the upper sway bar link retaining nut. Use a 10mm spanner to stop the link from rotating. Remove the upper silent block. Use the jack to lift the stub axle on the other side to release the sway bar link. Then the sway bar link. Using a crowbar, lever all of the control arm from the steering knuckle. Using a socket wrench and a 14mm socket, unscrew the holding base on the brake hose. Then remove it. Brush the screw of the shock absorber base and spray it with degreaser. Using 2 socket wrenches and 2 17mm sockets, unscrew the screw on the shock absorber base. Then remove the screw. Brush the shock absorber base, then spray it with penetrating oil to make it easier to remove. For this operation, we use the class OM9272 tool, which makes it easier to release the grip of the stub axle and to remove the shock absorber. Finish unscrewing the hub nut. Unscrew the 2 stud bolts. Prepare a stable, elevated surface to place all of the stub axle once you have removed it. You can now remove the drive shaft from the stub axle. Disconnect the ABS using a hammer. Strike the axle stub to release the base of the shock absorber. Hold the shock absorber with one hand and finish unscrewing with the other. Remove the shock absorber. In order to change the shock absorber, you must now separate it from the spring. You can find in the description the tool we use in the video, which we think is most adapted to the operation. Careful. Pay attention as you compress the spring. This is not without risk and should be undertaken, paying very careful attention. Block the tool in a vise. This will make it easier to use. Make sure they are properly held by the locking studs, then slowly compress the spring using the socket wrench and the appropriate socket. Once the shock absorber is free from the spring, using a 17mm offset wrench and a 6mm Allen socket, you can unscrew the nut on the shock absorber itself. You can now remove the shock absorber from the spring. Then remove the shock absorber stop, the protective sleeve.
Okay, guys, if we can share this video with you and help you save a lot of money, is also thanks to our partner, Mr. Auto. So, if you want to support us and buy the part for this operation, visit their website. Okay, back to work.
Insert the sleeve into the spring. You will find the bulk shock absorbers used in the video exclusively on the Mr. Auto website and through the link in the description. Take your new shock absorber. When changing your shock absorbers, you can also change the shock absorber mount as well as the sleeve bordering onto the shock absorber. You can also reuse them if they are not too worn down. Push on the actuator to remove the security lock. Before installing the new shock absorbers, it is necessary to prime them by pressing the shock absorber rod vertically so that the gas and hydraulic fluid are separated. Unscrew the nut on the shock absorber head. Position everything in the spring. Then install the stop, the upper shock absorber support, the turning stop plate, and finish by screwing in the lug nut onto the shock absorber stem. Tightly fix it in place using a 17 mm offset wrench while holding the stem with a 6 mm Allen key. Finish off the tightening with a torque wrench. Unscrew the spring compression tools carefully, paying attention to the position of the spring on the lower and upper shock absorber supports. You have now finished preparing the new part. Put the lower bearing back in place. Insert the shock absorber starting from the top part. Replace the upper strut support bearing and then the washer. Put the nut holding the support bearing in place. Start to screw the nut in a little. Sand and grease the inside of the stub axle to help facilitate the reinsertion of the shock absorber. The bottom positioning pin of the shock absorber base must be inserted into the opening of the stub axle. Lower the jack so that you can insert the shock absorber base into the stub axle. You can open the stub axle wider, which will make your task much easier. Insert the steering knuckle into the foot of the shock absorber. Then remove the tool. Using a hammer, slide a thin chisel into the opening of the stub axle at the shock absorber base. The lower positioning pin of the shock absorber base must be inserted into the opening of the axle stub until the tab of the pin allows the axle stub screw to pass through. Remove the jack. Then reinstall the shock absorber foot screw. Then screw the nut back on. Tighten the nut of the shock absorber base with a torque spanner. Insert the drive shaft into the stub axle. Put the hub nut back in place. Reinstall the suspension ball joint in the stub axle. Then screw the castellated nut back on. Finish off the tightening with a torque wrench. Take the new key and put it in place within the castellated nut. Fold the key. Brush and lubricate the location of the link to facilitate its reinstallation. Put the sway bar link back in place. Put the washer in place. Put the lower bearing back in place. Then insert the link into the suspension control arm. Then install the second support bearing, the second washer. The spacer during this operation, you will work on the front end of your car. An alignment check carried out by a professional will ensure that your steering system is once again perfectly adjusted and functioning. The third washer. The third support bearing. Remove the jack. Replace the upper strut support bearing and then the washer. Next, use a crowbar to pry between the sway bar and the control arm so that you can put the link back in place. Tighten the nut. Finish tightening with a torque wrench. Roughly screw 2 will stud bolts back on. Press the brake pedal again. Finish tightening the hub nut with a torque wrench. Unscrew the 2 stud bolts. You can now crimp the hub nut using a thin chisel. Clip the ABS sensor cable back. Screw the holding based on the brake hose. You can now repeat the operation on the other side. Then you will be able to put the wheels back on your vehicle. Put your car back on the ground and block the wheels securely. Finish off the tightening with a torque wrench. Finish tightening the retaining nut on the suspension strut support bearing. Finish tightening the suspension strut support bearing nut with the vehicle on the ground using a torque wrench. Then put the metallic frame back in. Then screw the 6 screws back on. Reconnect the windscreen wiper motor. Put it back in its slot. Then screw the screws back in. Put the fasteners in place. Put the protection plate back on. Reinstall both rivets. Put the windscreen frame back in place. Reconnect the hose for the windscreen washing liquid. Then the side covers. Refit the wiper arm without using too much force when tightening. Then put the cover back on the nut. Operation completed.
Hi, it's Theo from UseTool. I hope this video has helped you a lot in your car maintenance. We would be super grateful if you could spread the word so that we can produce even more tutorials. Simply give us a like, a comment, and hit that subscribe button. It really helps us boost the channel and help the whole community. Thanks a lot and have a great one.